dignity. She's a woman, yes, a woman, of all seasons.
Have you ever been in a season of submission when you're under the authority of another? And often it is when we're serving the vision of another person, or we're working, even if it's in the corporate sector, we're working under a boss, under an employer, or even in relationships like with our parents. We're in that season where there's a lot of submission required of us. You know, even in our marriages, God may be dealing with us as regards submitting according to his word. And a season of submission is inevitable in your journey to destiny, because God needs to understand and to see that you can submit when you need to submit, so that in seasons when you need to be submitted to, then you're already sorted and you already understand that there is submitting to another and there is also being submitted to. So in a season of submission, you need to discern, first of all, that you're in that season of submission. And how will you know you're in that season? You will notice that you're serving another. You're under the supervision, direction, instruction of another person, a person with authority over you. It could be a spiritual authority. You could be serving a pastor, a bishop in church leadership, or you could be serving somebody in the corporate sector, or even in the family sector. You could be serving in any of those situations where you're definitely the one receiving instructions and implementing and executing them, and you're receiving direction and working in accordance. You're not the one calling the shots. You're not the one saying what's to be done. You're being told what needs to be done, and you're doing it. So once you've discerned you're in that kind of a season, the next thing is to ask yourself, what could be the purpose of this season? Obviously, the purpose is so that you learn to take instructions, to listen to instructions, to obey instructions, to execute and implement those instructions effectively and properly, in accordance to how they are coming to you, because that's crucial in your journey to destiny. Learning how to listen, how to implement, how to execute, and how to follow orders and commands. And then, in fact, the people who understand the issue of submission best are probably people in the security forces, in the armed forces, in the air force, in the police forces, because the hierarchy and rank there is understood very well. So they learn to submit to authority. And it's crucial for the molding of our characters to learn how to submit to authority. Now, after understanding the nature and the purpose of the season, the next thing is the attitude to adopt. And of course, the attitude to adopt is one of obedience. Obedience is key in a season of submission. Obedience and loyalty. You have to be loyal to that person you're serving. You have to learn to protect their information, protect confidential information, protect them, guard them, cover them. You have to learn loyalty, because you're serving them, and serving them will include protecting them, guarding them, making their image look good, and making sure no harm comes to them. So in that submission, obedience and loyalty is very key. Humility. You need to be humble, because you are not the boss. You are being bossed. You are being directed. You are being led. You're not the leader. So you learn humility, and you learn maturity, because it takes maturity to serve another person when you yourself are probably being served elsewhere. You're probably a leader somewhere else. But in this particular situation, you are the led, and you are submitted to another authority. So it takes humility. And the people you meet, of course, it's a leader, the principal that you're serving, in whatever capacity, in whichever sphere of influence, whether it's in media, politics, education, business, whether it's in the home or in the church. There is a leader and a principal, a set man of God, maybe if it's in the church, or at least an authority that you are submitting to. And then there will be other people also submitting to that same authority. And it's to understand how to relate with those peers as you all submit. Because there are those who may want to, the snare. Let me come to the snare, because this has to do with the snare. One of the traps and snares is that those you are submitting with to that leader, your co-submittees, as it were, may tempt you to be disobedient. They may not be as obedient as you are. They may not understand the need for loyalty and humility, and they may want to tempt you not to be obedient, to be disobedient and defiant. And you must avoid anyone who tempts you away from strict obedience, loyalty. Of course, when we talk about loyalty and obedience, there needs to be qualification. You don't want to obey and submit to an authority that is telling you to break the word of God, break the law of the land, or go against core values, moral values that you know you cannot break. So there needs to be some kind of qualified submission and loyalty in that case. Now, the other dangers I've said, it's pride, disobedience, defiance. You must be careful not to adopt those attitudes, because then you will abort your submission and God will make you go back and start that submission season all over again. Then, of course, lessons. What lesson are you learning? You're learning leadership because you're watching a leader leading you, and you're tapping into those leadership skills and principles. You're tapping into the character of a leader. You're learning that when it's my turn to lead, this is how I will do it, or this is not how I'll do it. So there are lessons to be learned from leadership. Mistakes made, how to avoid certain mistakes, how to handle power and authority. One of the most important things as a woman walking to destiny that you need to learn how to handle is power and authority. How does your leader handle power and authority? And likewise, how will you handle power and authority? How do you behave when you're the most powerful person in a room? Or do you abuse power and authority? Watch your leader. Watch how he handles his power and authority, how he handles you and others around you. And you will learn the keys and the proper principles of how to lead. So you learn leadership. You learn how to be humble. You learn how to be submissive and obedient, and to implement and articulate and execute instructions. Now, you will smell transition, because every seasons come in cycles. Every season has an end, and it must come to an end so that you graduate to the next season. And you mustn't stay in one season too long, stagnating in a season too long. You must be able to transition successfully to the next season, and do not fall in the cracks in between seasons. Don't stagnate in one season when it's over, the lessons are learned, the purpose is accomplished. Don't stagnate, and don't fall in between the cracks. You need to transition successfully into the next season. And you know it's a season of transitioning when you also have come to be at a place of rest and peace with submission and obedience and loyalty. It can no longer be questioned that you're loyal. Your obedience cannot be questioned. Your ability to take care and have your leaders back can no longer be questioned. Then you know God has accomplished what he wanted to accomplish, and he's ushering you into another season. So are you in a season of submission?